I'd like to call to order our meeting. Mr. Tarnello, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bear,
Here.
Mr. Eady,
Here.
Mr. Roskis,
Here.
Mrs. Schatzman,
Here.
Mrs. Menser.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Can we please stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to item 2A, approval of agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve our agenda for this evening?
Madam President, I motion that we move on the agenda.
Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I second item 2A, approval of agenda.
Discussion? Mr. Tarnello?
Mr. Roskis,
Yes.
Mrs. Schatzman,
Yes.
Mrs. Menser,
Yes.
Mr. Eady,
Yes.
Mrs. Bear.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Moving on to item 3A, community engagement. Mr. Patrick, you are up to present the top 10 seniors at South High School.
Madam President, Madam Vice President, members of the board, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Tarnello, I have the privilege as South High School's principal to present to you the Willoughby South top 11 senior students of the class of 2023. There was a tie. These students earned the right to be the South High School academic top 10 based on earning the highest accumulated grade point average of their collective high school careers. As much of an accomplishment as that is, the additional things they have done over the last 4 years really does set them apart as truly amazing young adults. Starting alphabetically, I will introduce each student, have them stand, and announce some of their awesome accomplishments, as they will receive a plaque, which didn't come in yet, sorry. Afterwards, we'll go to the lobby for some photos. Our first top 10 student is Marco Bortnick. Marco, please stand. Marco describes himself as an energetic, and he learns by being involved. A fun fact about Marco is he taught himself how to whistle, and he is pretty good at it, he says. We won't put you on the spot. Marco is a National Honor Society member, a member of the South Tennis team, and has also been a part of our academic decathlon team. He plans on attending Miami University, where he will major in biomedical sciences so he can help others and make a difference. Ladies and gentlemen, Marco Bortnick. Our next student is Tallulah Burns. Tallulah describes herself as a dedicated, hardworking student that has a passion for learning new things and sharing her experiences with friends. A fun fact about Tallulah is that she loves ceramics class and will tell anybody who is willing to listen about it. Tallulah has been on the principal list all 4 years of high school, has played soccer, softball for South, as well as basketball, and this year was part of our inaugural girls flag football team. Tallulah is interested in attending Baldwin Wallace, Cincinnati, or possibly Kent State University, and has not decided on a major, but is excited to discover a career she is passionate about. Ladies and gentlemen, Tallulah Burns. Our next student is Brianna Campbell. Brianna describes herself as dependable, hardworking, passionate, kind, musical, and free-spirited. A fun fact about Brianna is that she really loves animals, especially dogs. Brianna is a member of the National Honor Society, earned principal list honors all 4 years of high school, and is a member of Key Club and student government. She also is our marching band drum major, technical director for our drama club, and has competed on the academic decathlon team, as well as been first flute in the Wind Symphony and is a flute soloist inside and outside of school. She plans to attend Cleveland State University to pursue an eventual medical degree where she can work as a pathologist in the area of research. Ladies and gentlemen, Brianna Campbell. Our next student is Megan Carroll. Megan describes herself as loyal, honest, hardworking, and with a can-do attitude. A fun fact about Megan is that she has broken both of her elbows. Megan has played volleyball for South for 4 years, is also a member of the National Honor Society, and on the Lakeland Community College Dean list. She plans on attending the University of Toledo and major in pharmacy, ultimately to help protect vulnerable people. Ladies and gentlemen, Megan Carroll. Our next top 11 student is Seamus Gary. Seamus describes himself as determined, disciplined, passionate, compassionate, and hardworking. A fun fact about Seamus is that he holds 2 South records for diving. Seamus is an AP Scholar with Distinction, president of the National Honor Society, a student section leader, a WRC Scholar athlete, and part of the swimming and diving team, soccer team, track team, and tennis team. Is that legal? Seamus is interested in Case Western Reserve University, The Ohio State University, and the University of Tampa, where he will pursue a degree in genetics. Ladies and gentlemen, Seamus Gary. Our next student is Emma McHugh. Emma describes herself as a hardworking student athlete that also enjoys reading and spending time with family and friends. A fun fact about Emma is that she's a big fan of Formula One racing and Premier Soccer. Emma is a member of the National Honor Society and has also played basketball, soccer, and this year was also part of our inaugural girls flag football team. Emma plans on attending North Carolina State and majoring in computer science. Ladies and gentlemen, Emma McHugh. Next, we have Vias Pai. Vias describes himself as inquisitive, collaborative, and outgoing. A fun fact about Vias is that he loves dinosaurs, and as a child dreamed he would be a paleontologist, although he thinks now it might just be a hobby. Vias is a National Merit Finalist, an AP Scholar with Distinction, on the Lakeland's Dean's list, as well as the South Principals list. He is the Vice President of National Honor Society, a member of the Tri-C Jazz Academy, a member of the a math and physics tutor at Lakeland Community College, the programming and controls lead for the first robotics team, which has won multiple regional championships and will be going to the world competition in Texas later this month. He's also been on the principal's list since he was a freshman, Dean's list at Community College, and an AP Scholar. Although Vias has not yet decided, he is interested in Case Western Reserve as well as the University of Purdue to study computer engineering with an emphasis on robotics and artificial intelligence. Ladies and gentlemen, Vias Pai. We next have Catherine Rupnow. Don't believe she's here. And she's traveling back from vacation, but we're going to give her her minute. Catherine described herself as hardworking, determined, and a cooperative learner. Fun fact about Caitlin is she loves dogs, especially her dogs Rex and Ruby. Catherine has been on the principal's list for 4 years of high school, a member of the National Honor Society, and played volleyball and ran cross country for South. She will be attending The Ohio State University with career plans in computer science and engineering. Ladies and gentlemen, Catherine Rupnow. Next is James Saracine. James describes himself as calm, hardworking, and honest. A fun fact about James is he was involved in music and varsity athletics at South. James has been on the principal list for 4 years of high school and received 3 Scholar Athlete Awards. James will be attending Bowling Green State University, where he will study statistics, eventually working for a professional sports team in the field of analytics. Ladies and gentlemen, James Saracen. Our next student is Christina Stanich. Christina describes herself as passionate, dedicated, caring, and hardworking. A fun fact about Christina is that she has been playing the alto sax for over a decade. Christina is a member of the National Honor Society, Key Club, marching band, jazz band, wind symphony, and has also been on the principal's list all 4 years of high school. She plans on attending Cleveland State University to study chemistry with the ultimate goal of being a pharmacist. Ladies and gentlemen, Christina Stanich. Last but certainly not least is Morgan Staska. Morgan describes herself as hardworking, determined, goal-oriented, friendly, and inclusive. Life is too short to be anything but nice. A fun fact about Morgan is that she loves to paint and draw in her free time. Morgan will graduate with an honors diploma, is a member of the National Honor Society, Principals List, Key Club, as well as being on the varsity softball and swim teams. She has recently received the Scholar Athlete Award from the WRC and the Ohio Coaches Fast Pitch Association. Megan plans to attend the University of Dayton, where she will study engineering with a minor in mathematics. Ladies and gentlemen, Morgan Staska. At this time, I'm going to invite the top 11 to go outside for pictures with their families. Do you guys have to do a recess for that?
Yeah, I have to do a motion. Do I hear a motion to take a 10-minute recess?
Madam President, I move to take a 10-minute recess.
Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I second that motion.
Discussion? Mr. Charnello?
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mrs. Schatzman?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you
10-minute
so
recess.
much. We appreciate you guys having them. They're a tremendous amount of kids, so thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Meeting again. Item 3B, Board President Q&A. And I'd like to thank Mr. Murphy for preparing the answers to the questions since I was not at the last regular board meeting, so thank you. We had 2 public speakers at the March regular board meeting. We want to thank Mrs. Mara for sharing information from other school districts on their response to Title IX resolution. We appreciate your compliments on the Longfellow Family Literacy Night. Our staff has been working very hard to engage our community and families to support the education of our students. We'd also like to thank Mr. Mara for sharing his thoughts on his experiences teaching students reading and math. In terms of the governor's focus on reading instruction, we would like to share the district's approach to phonics instruction. The district's elementary language arts program follows the science of reading and incorporates a strong phonemic awareness and phonics approach to learning to read. The Haggerty curriculum is used in every preschool and K-3 classroom for phonemic awareness. Haggerty is a 10-minute whole group oral lesson each day that provides students with multiple repeated explicit instruction in phonemic awareness. Foundations is the core phonics program for all students in grades K-3. In the 2023-2024, the preschool is implementing the pre-K Foundations curriculum. Foundations uses a structured literacy approach for teaching phonemic awareness, sound mastery, phonics, word study, and advanced word study, vocabulary, print concepts, and letter formation. Thank you to both speakers from the March board meeting. We can now move on to item 3C, public comment. Mr. Charnello, do we have anyone this evening?
Nancy Mara.
'39 Minnewawa Drive, Nancy Mara, Timberlake, Ohio. Thank you again for addressing my question on Title IX. I'm not so sure if it was addressed, but I do know that we could evade this subject for a long time until more comes up. We could run, we could hide, watch the news, talk to a mom and mentor. Boys are pushing the limit. They're walking into the girls' bathroom. Not dressed up as a girl, just pushing the limit because that board decided not to do anything. Kids will be kids. I want our girls to be protected, period. I'm begging you, board, to get some chutzpah and identify any child. I guess in Longfellow, a dad contacted me. There's a couple little boys going into the girls' bathroom, and the one little girl doesn't want to go to the bathroom because she knows there's 2 little boys going in there, but they're dressed up as girls. This is not going away. Our girls need to be protected, and the fights are going to begin, and the lawsuits, as I said, work both ways. Title IX was based on physiological differences. We know this, not as they identify. I know it's a hard subject, but I'd like to know that a girl doesn't have to hold it all day when she's afraid of a boy coming in the bathroom. The second thing I wanted to talk about was our ratings. I hope with our new superintendent. I hear nothing but great things about him. I used to live in the Mayfield area. I hear great things about him. We need to move, in my opinion, after talking to different parents, we need to move down the center more. Soy's doing great. I've said this before, and our children with a little extra challenge are doing great. We need to go more down the center to get our ratings back up. I think our rating in algebra was 38%. As you know, I was a homeschooler. You know, parents have to get involved. I do not, and I never have, blamed the teachers. I don't know how we're going to get the parents involved. I don't know if it's a contract system or something. When I used to tutor children in private schools, the parents are decided a contract to be involved with their child. And lastly, I do sit on city council in Timberlake. I very much appreciate public comment and being in the Republic, the United States of America that we are, that free speech still exists here at Willoughby-Eastlake. 2 months ago, I didn't bring it up last one. As I come here and I give my address, and everybody else does too, to make sure we're constituents. I think that's great. I was sent a nice love letter, I'll call it, in the mail to stop coming to these meetings. They don't want to hear from me anymore. I paid no heed. My police department did and contacted me. They want the letter, and they took the letter, and they asked for an investigation. I said, no need, because I want the person that decided to go against what, especially the Title IX thing, to always feel free to come up and debate me. I would like free speech on both sides politely. And I know that you will facilitate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan DeFranco.
Is this on? Is this on? Can everybody hear me? Yep. It's my first time speaking here. Thank you for letting me go second. My name's Ryan DeFranco.
Can you please state your address? I'm sorry.
I'm getting ready to.
Thank you.
2416 Lost Nation Road, Eastlake, Ohio. My name is Ryan DeFranco. I am a father. I am a husband. Father of 3 daughters. My daughter came home to me one day and told me she didn't want to go. Well, it was in the morning. She didn't want to go to school. I asked her why. She said, there's a little boy using the bathroom next to her, standing up. I said, hon, I really don't know what to tell you. I don't condone that as a father. I will not condone that. I will protect my daughter at all costs, as any man in here will. Any father in here will. I would like to know what the Willoughby-Eastlake Board of Education is going to do about this. We need to stop it before it gets out of hand, before the snowball explodes, essentially. It took a lot for me to come here today. I seen the entire room was filled. First time speaking to my peers, families, educators. I think it starts at home. We need to do better as parents to get our kids ready for the real world. The real world isn't all unicorns and rainbows, as a lot of people may think these days. But we just need to do better before it gets worse. And I'm coming to you guys for that. I want to see where you guys stand on it and how we're going to fix that problem appropriately. And I want to protect the children at all costs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment for this evening. Moving on to item 4A, Superintendent's Employment Contract and Salary Schedule. And before we begin this item, I just want to thank all the stakeholders for their help with the entire process. Thank you to Mrs. Schatzman for being the liaison between finding leaders and the board. I know that was a huge task. Thank you to all my fellow board members, and the amount of work that went into this was incredible, so thank you, everybody. Do I hear a motion to approve item 4A, Superintendent's Employment Contract and Salary Schedule?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve item 4A, Superintendent's Employment Contract and Salary Schedule.
Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I will second item 4A.
Discussion?
Other than want it to resonate the same thing, Mrs. Schatzman, I know that was a huge lift, and you did an excellent job. And also to finding leaders, I was thoroughly impressed with their engagement and help. So wanted to make sure, once again, thank you to them. Other than that, welcome, Dr. Ward. We're very excited to have you.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Mr. Charnella?
Mrs. Bear.
Yes.
Mr. Reedy.
Yes.
Mr. Roskis.
Yes.
Mrs. Schatzman.
Yes.
Mrs. Menser.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Welcome, Dr. Ward.
All right, I could not be more ecstatic to be joining this family. The welcome has been. Can't really get it on video.
Yeah.
I
You said
told-
you weren't going to do this. but
I
it's
know,
okay.
I told him
The
this
people
was
have spoken.
Mr. Murphy's show today and the board, but I could not be more grateful for the opportunity to serve this community. I've lived here and raised my family here for the last 10 years. This is a wonderful, wonderful and supportive community. This is a wonderfully supportive board, a great staff, and some wonderful parents. And so I look forward to the next chapter for Willoughby-Eastlake and appreciate your support.
Thank you. board discussion. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share?
I wanted to update everyone on the Community Advisory Committee. We did send out a request from the members of the former committee as to whether they wanted to remain on the new committee. We only received one interested party from that group. Chuck Murphy is also reaching out to the principals at North and South to help retain a student representative from either high school. And we will likely send out information about the committee and applications to some of the other people that were interested in the original strategic planning committee, and also some of the people that did apply for some of the open board spots.
So when Mr. Raskus and I met to kind of go over everything, we have an application ready to go. It's the same format as previous with some amendments to align with the new structure of the committee with the policy. I have all of the names from everybody who applied for the board positions, as well as those that applied for the strategic planning committee originally. And we wanted to make sure with the board first, would it be okay to send an email to that group with the application to see if we could generate from those previously interested parties before we were to go wide scale for community application?
Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
good idea. And since we talked about that briefly with each of them, I think that's a good idea.
I agree.
I'm fine with that.
I think the one thing too that's maybe a newish variable is the policy does stipulate that it's, the superintendent supports and helps. So wanted to know, I know we're working on, and we'll get to, but as soon as Dr. Ward's up to speed, probably bringing him in to the process. Because, at the end of the day, helping call meetings, obviously, Mr. Murphy in transition, but it's kind of like a coordinated effort. Is that okay? Okay, well then, Mr. Askus and I will get together and we'll start sending emails as soon as possible and keep the board up to speed as to the volume of applicants. Would it be okay if prior to the next board meeting, if we put a deadline in for application, let's say it's 2 weeks, and we don't receive the volume of applications needed to fill the committee from that pool, that at that time we could take the same approach we did previously where we publicly put the application out there for others at large to apply?
Sure.
Should we do that in parallel to soliciting from the committee, just so people who might be interested now can throw their name in as well? I don't know how many slots there are in the committee, sorry.
Not as many as we originally had for the strategic planning. So I think we could, if you guys want to, what we did last time is we put it out on the website, we put it on the Willoughby-Eastlake Facebook page, and then we cross-coordinated with other third parties to get that message out as well. And then we had a receiving party, I believe it was me, or it was you and I, we both received.
It went to both of us.
Yeah, and then Stacy and I kind of went through to look at demographics to kind of organize it.
Yeah, I would just say, just because the nature of the committee has changed from what it originally was advertised as, that we might get more people interested than who applied the first time, so I'd love to open it up to the community.
Okay. So that would mean the website, I'm just writing it down so I can't, obviously our Facebook, and then we did a distribution to parents via our distro list for families and parents. And then looking at community partners, specifically our civic leaders, senior citizens, community centers, PTAs, there's one more. Boosters.
And how can we get Allerton Hill to assist with that?
They would have to write the communication and then we'd give them the application. So I think that's what we need to do then, is kind of coordinate that all.
Right.
So is it okay if John and I kind of get to work on it with Mr. Murphy, and we'll make sure we dot those i's, cross those t's, and get it out?
Yeah.
Just to kind of get it
You
moving.
guys good? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So just to throw it out there, one of the things after, per the policy, once we have the committee members, they'll have to have an organizational meeting in which they come together and decide on some type of leadership and reporting structure, as well as to decide on a calendar and cadence for meetings. And do we want that to be something that the board kind of is involved in, or are you okay if we just kind of hit the ground running and go?
I'm fine if you go ahead and do it.
Yeah, it's a superintendent-led committee, correct?
Yeah.
So we'll
We-
let the superintendent
Well, it is.
participants set the schedule, or?
They would get together and they would figure that out with whomever is chosen for the committee, which is the next question then is, based on the volume of applicants that we had last time, I suspect we'll have a similar amount. We will need to have a selection process for the applicants. Last time we did a lottery.
And we should also account for alternates too, just in case anybody moves away or loses interest for whatever reason, having an alternate list as well.
So it is a superintendent-led committee, and typically speaking, the superintendent would look through the applicants and then, from my understanding, kind of pull out to ensure all demographics are represented. So is that something we'd want to charge Mr. Murphy and Dr. Ward with doing? Or do we want to, as a board, kind of give some direction as to the volume in different demographics?
I think since it's superintendent-led, it should
Just
go to
let
those
them.
two.
Well, there we go. We'll just
Are you
kind of
okay?
coordinate and give it over. This is
Giving
the
you
best
work
type of
already, Dr. Ward.
I think these committees will be key to standing up and supporting next school year, so awesome. Anything else that we're forgetting so that we can, as soon as possible, get this moving and stood up? Okay?
I just had one thing really quick. Mrs. Schatzman and I attended a policy meeting with Mr. Irucci, the assistant superintendent, and our Neola representative. There are numerous policies on tonight's agenda for first read. So no vote, just review. Next month will be second read and vote. We also discussed the student code of conduct meeting that usually happens over the summer or within the next few months. Due to the understanding about lack of discipline in the schools, Mrs. Schatzman and I requested that we are part of that meeting since it has to do with policy to see if we can implement some new things to trickle down to help with discipline in our schools across the board. So all the different schools are on the same page doing the same discipline, it won't be differentiated by school. But elementary school will differentiate from high school, but all elementary schools will be the same, middle schools and high schools. So just to update you, we will attend that meeting whenever administration puts that forward.
I think he had said potentially July, sometime over the summer between the next school year. But really with the goal of alignment, so a student's experience is not different at each elementary school or each middle school, which I think is in line with a lot of what we heard from Dr. Ward's plan.
I was going to ask with regards to the discipline, is there a draft that you'll be walking in to kind of look over, or is it more of like a brainstorming session to kind of come up with ideas?
So there's already the student code of conduct. Mr. Murphy, how does that usually go? Is it revising what's currently in place, or can we come with ideas of our own to help facilitate that?
Absolutely could.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
Okay. Do you want to solicit ideas from do you already have like ideas of what you're going forth with, or?
We haven't gotten that far yet.
Fair enough. When it comes, do you want us to kind of like throw ideas to you for consideration to take, or do you want us to send things to Mr. Murphy?
Once we know when the meeting is, we can probably get feedback from the board as a whole if you have anything you guys want to add or us to bring to the table when we go to that meeting.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything else?
I just wanted to retouch again to say thank you to the community for their involvement, especially to this last meeting when we had the two candidates speak. I was really surprised and pleased with the amount of people that showed up and how open they were with us on their opinions of what they thought. And that meant a lot, and it was great to see so many people show up. I also wanted to say thank you for the public speakers that spoke tonight. Sometimes we don't always hear what's going on. Sometimes things might slip through that maybe only our kids speak to us. And so I appreciate all of you that have the courage to come up and speak, as well as reaching out to the board throughout, between meetings and stuff. I really appreciate all of the communication. That's something that we're really, really trying to improve. and to make sure that everybody in the community knows that we're here, we do want to talk to you, we want to hear what you have to say. And so I just want to say thank you.
If nothing else, we can move on to 4C, legislative update from Mrs. Schatzman.
Okay, I will try to keep it brief. There's lots going on in the Ohio legislature, although right now they're on spring recess, not to be confused with spring break, until next week. So House Bill, right before the recess, House Bill 117, which would eliminate retention under the third grade reading guarantee, was referred to the House Education Committee, so I want to keep an eye on that. We've talked at length about Senate Bill 1, which has a companion bill, HB 12. Both of those are about reorganizing the Ohio Department of Education, ODE, into a Department of Education and Workforce. What's interesting is that in the House, HB 12 was referred to their primary and secondary ed committee. However, SB 1 was actually referred to the Committee for Economic Development and Workforce. Mr. Ciarnello and I went down to a legislative conference on March 21st, and one of the things we heard from the Speaker of the House was that that was a goal for doing that, putting them in two separate committees, even though they're similar bills, was to get as many eyes in the House of Representatives on them, because different people tend to be on different committees, although there's some overlap, but they could get more eyeballs and have more discussion and more opportunities for public participation. That way, to really vet these things and make any amendments before it would go to the floor for a vote. With that, I just wanted to let you guys know that the State Board of Education met today, and they'll meet again tomorrow. In their March meeting, they had once again postponed the selection of their new superintendent because they were waiting for some of this legislation, because obviously the job and the role of the superintendent would change if there was this restructuring. Sadly, I guess, Dr. Siddons, who's the sitting superintendent, interim superintendent for the state board, actually resigned on Friday. So she gave her notice. She'll be going to Upper Arlington schools. So that puts a little pressure, I would say, on them to select their search firm and move forward. So I'll be keeping an eye on that and letting you guys know when I hear more. Other bills, HB 1, which is the restructuring of the income tax and by sort of parallel the property tax to offset some of these changes, is still in the House Ways and Means Committee. They've had 4 hearings. The most recent one was on the 28th, where they heard opponent testimony. Mr. Ciarnello went down and gave great testimony as an interested party on the 21st of March. I think that came out in a public communication, and hopefully I've got permission from the Ohio channel that we can get an excerpt of it, so I'll work with you guys to put it on the website. But essentially, he went down as an interested party to represent our community and our taxpayers. So rather than talking about necessarily the impact on the district, which there will be one, he talked more, and Mr. Ciarnello and I answered some questions about the impact it would have on our community and the taxpayers here. So there's more information that has come out, but essentially we know it would negatively impact our community. And then in terms of the voucher bills, there's sort of 3 different bills that have to do with vouchers: SB 11, HB 11, and also HB 33, which is the budget. So there's 3 different variations of essentially scholarships, Ed Choice scholarships, or voucher program where money would go to private and or charter school. So I'm keeping an eye on all of those right now. None of them have moved to the floor for a vote. One of the things we learned about at the legislative update and have heard through some testimony down in the House is that OSBA, OASBO, and BASA, which are basically the professional organizations for school boards, treasurers, and superintendents, have joined together. And what they are really lobbying for, asking for, is before we start pushing more money out, that we would fully fund the Fair School Funding Plan. So the governor put in his proposed bill that they would do the next phase-in of the Fair School Funding Plan,
But these groups have come together and said, before we're going to give more money out, let's fully fund the Fair School funding plan, and let's do it at the 2022 inputs. Right now, the calculations are based on 2018 numbers, so updating them to 2022 inputs would have significant impacts. And they're also asking that going forward, there would be a mechanism for triggering those updates. Mr. Chernello could probably speak more to what kind of impact that would have on our schools. I think you said it was in the millions of dollars, is that correct?
Yeah, the updating the inputs would be more of a benefit to Willoughby-Eastlake versus the phase-in. We're actually on a guarantee with the phase-in, so if they fully implemented the phase-in, we'd actually lose money. However, if they moved the cost inputs up, which reflect the cost from everything from transportation to teacher salaries to everything like that, it would properly show what we are and how much we spend, and we'd actually go up a couple $1 million per year.
Other things that those groups are, those same groups are advocating for in the budget are SROs. They're asking for parity between what private and charter schools would get, which is fully funded SROs per building from the state, whereas public schools would get the state share calculation, which is basically what they use for the Fair School funding plan to fund SROs. So these groups are lobbying that we would get equality with private and charter schools. Also on literacy, the governor talked about funding schools to move towards the science of reading curriculum. And so these groups are asking for schools, actually like ours, as Mrs. Menser spoke about, who've already adopted and been early adopters of science of reading, that they could get reimbursed for the funds that they've already invested. So those are some important things. I'll keep you all posted. Hopefully back to HB1. It sounds like there's been multiple hearings at this point. Lots of people are saying they have problems, schools, libraries, municipalities. So it's very likely that there'll be some changes and amendments, and I will keep you guys posted if there's an additional action that our board should take. And thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mrs. Schatzman.
I just have a quick question for Nick really fast. So I just want to clarify. So you said that we would potentially, if the inputs were adjusted to 2022, that it would increase a couple $1 million potentially for Willoughby-Eastlake. That's not coming from our taxpayers. That would be coming from how the budget is allotted from the state of Ohio from the funds that we already receive, right?
Yes, that would be coming from the state budget. So that would be rolled into House Bill 33 is what its current number is, and that's how the House, the Senate, and the governor allocate their funds from the state budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 5A, approval of minutes of March 13, 2023. Do I hear a motion to approve this item?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve item 5A, approval of minutes from March 13th, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I second 5A, approval of minutes from March 13th.
Mr. Tarnello?
Mrs. Menser,
Yes.
Mrs. Schatzman,
Yes.
Mr. Roskis,
Yes.
Mr. Reedy,
Yes.
Mrs. Bear.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item 5B, approval of minutes of March 13th, 2023. Do I hear a motion to approve this item?
Madam President, I will make a motion to approve item 5B, approval of minutes of March 13, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I second 5B, approval of minutes for March 13th.
Discussion? Mr. Tarnello?
Mr. Reedy,
Yes.
Mr. Roskis,
Yes.
Mrs. Menser,
Yes.
Mrs. Schatzman,
Yes.
Mrs. Bear.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item 5C, approval of minutes of March 22nd, 2023. Do I hear a motion to approve item 5C?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve 5C, approval of minutes March 22nd, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I second that motion.
Discussion? Mr. Tarnello?
Mrs. Bear,
Yes.
Mr. Reedy,
Yes.
Mr. Roskis,
Yes.
Mrs. Schatzman,
Yes.
Mrs. Menser.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item 5D, approval of minutes of March 23rd, 2023. Do I hear a motion to approve item 5D?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve item 5D, approval of minutes of March 23rd, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I second the motion for 5D, approval of minutes of March 23rd.
Discussion? Mr. Tarnello?
Mr. Roskis,
Yes.
Mrs. Schatzman,
Yes.
Mrs. Menser,
Yes.
Mr. Reedy,
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Moving on to item 6, treasurer's report. Mr. Tornillo.
Thank you very much. 6A is the financial report for the month ended March 31st, 2023. We are now 75% through the fiscal year, and we have received 94.76% of our expected revenues for the year and expended 73.54% of the budgeted expenditures for the year. Our revenues saw a large increase due to the district receiving the first real estate tax final settlement in the month. And the last large revenue increase we will see in the fiscal year is the second payment of the homestead rollback, which will be about $4 million. Our general property tax revenue exceeded our estimates by about $2.6 million this fiscal year. A large contributor to that was the $1.4 million settlement from First Energy for tax year 2018, 19, and 2020, as they short paid their 2019 and 2020 taxes. So while I want to say this won't happen again, they already filed again for 2021. So we'll probably see that again in 3 more years. Our interest income is now at $864,000 year to date. Interest rates are beginning to slow. However, we will look to lock in some higher yield investments with funds that we are not currently utilizing at the moment to meet the operating requirements of the district. Our expenditures did not exceed our estimates as shown on page 1 by over $1 million. Our salaries are on target with our estimates at 74.98%, and our benefits are at 75.5%. And these categories make up close to 75% of the district's general fund revenue budget, or general fund budget. So those are pretty much right in line where we'd expect them to be. A lot of the other things could be timing or just not receiving invoices or being billed by other entities in a consistent manner. So, however, salaries and benefits are pretty much on target. 6B is the athletic event workers revised high school pay schedule, and this is just reflecting varsity and JV refs for soccer. As you can see, there are different amounts for either 3 refs or 2 refs, and if it's varsity or JV. 6C is the GPD Group Employees Foundation grant application acceptance. This is to purchase the materials needed to engage a classroom full of students with age-appropriate games and activities. This is for responsibility, recreation, and recess room, the 3 R's room. The purpose, this will be a room with activities to teach children how to play cooperatively, incorporated into our PBIS program. The Royal Lunch Tray winners will have access to the room. 6D, purchase orders. These are instances where invoices were dated prior to the purchase order being in place, or the invoice exceeded the purchase order and needed an amendment, or multiple invoices came in and they had to create a new purchase order, which then triggered the then and now. So while we try to not have these kind of issues, sometimes they do happen. And whenever you have a large budget like this with multiple buildings, multiple departments, sometimes it just happens. However, we do our best to try to keep these consistent and not on the board agenda. Sometimes we can't always do that. 6E, student activity accounts. These are monthly. It feels like they're monthly. And this is any time a student activity needs to revise their budget, student activities, purpose and goals, or anything like that. If they want to spend funds, you will also see the new grant application acceptance fund on there. You see a scholarship account on there and a couple other different accounts. 6F, gifts and donations. We received an anonymous donation of $5,000 to be used for school lunch debt. Well, I know who the person is. They just didn't want me to tell you guys who the person was. And the backpack fund donated $400 in school supplies to the district, so I want to thank both of those donors. And 6G, the sale of surplus equipment by public auction or scrap. Us and Peterman bought some school buses, and then we also have a van that we no longer need, so we are auctioning off those older vehicles now that we have newer vehicles on the road and transporting our students regularly.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7, superintendent resolutions. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Madam President. The first item for your consideration is bleacher replacement project for Willoughby Middle School. This item is in reference to bleachers at Willoughby Middle School, which was previously, of course, South High School. During the winter months, as you may recall, a water line burst at Willoughby Middle, and the gym floor and the bleachers needed to be removed because of the damage that was caused. In the process of removing the bleachers, it became increasingly apparent that these 40-year-old bleachers were posing a safety hazard to those that used them. In addition, they were not handicapped accessible and lacked important safety features such as handrails and treaded steps. Because of their poor condition and hazards they present, the district thought this was a necessary expense and overdue to update the bleachers. And I wanted to point out also, it ties to our strategic plan under Operation Safety and Fiscal Responsibility. 2 items under those. Number 1, control long-term costs through operational efficiency of new and existing facilities, and also ensuring effective implementation, management, and maintenance of facilities.
Do I hear a motion to approve item 7A, bleacher replacement project for Willoughby Middle School?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve item 7A, bleacher replacement project for WMS.
Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I will second that motion.
Discussion? Mr. Tarnello?
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Schatzman?
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item B for your consideration is a mediation agreement. Under federal law, all students, regardless of their disabilities, are entitled to a free and appropriate education, often referred to as FAPE. If a student's disability is such that their educational needs cannot be successfully met within the district, they sometimes attend a school other than their own home school. When this happens, the home district pays the expenses related to that change. This agreement is referencing this type of situation. It was determined that this student's special needs would be better met at a school other than one in Willoughby-Eastlake.
Do I hear a motion to approve item 7B?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve item 7B, mediation agreement.
Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I second that motion.
Discussion?
No, I just want to thank you, Dr. Murphy, for not, Dr. Ward, Mr. Murphy. I need a break already. It's not even a long meeting. I want to thank you for keeping us up to date, and also Heather Dodd was heavily involved in that process. So a big thank you to Heather Dodd and the family as well. So appreciate that.
Sure.
Mr. Tarnello?
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Schatzman?
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item C for your consideration is the Ohio Schools Council Governance Policy Change Resolution. This item is regarding a change to the voting policy for the Ohio Schools Council. This organization was created and governed by school districts for the purpose of saving money through volume purchases. Under the old policies, in order to change or amend the bylaws of the group, 2/3 of the members must be present and vote. Under the revised policy, the bylaws can be changed by a majority vote of the quorum of superintendents of the members approving a change.
Do I hear a motion to approve item 7C, Ohio Schools Council Governance Policy Change Resolution?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve 7C Ohio Schools Council Governance Policy Change Resolution.
Do I hear a second?
Madam President.
I will second that motion.
Discussion? Mr. Tarnello?
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mr. Schatzman?
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item D for your consideration is a contract for furnishing school pictures. I'm happy to say that this contract is with a photographer that has done work for the district in the past, and our staff and families have been pleased with the results. The person is now working with a company called Barksdale Group. This contract allows us to keep prices low while continuing to work with someone that has given us positive results in the past.
Thank you.
Item 8, personnel agenda. Letter A, again, this time, per request, we've broken down the personnel agenda into
Yes,
4
thank you.
parts. Sure.
It's much better this time.
Oh, good. So, moving forward, staff members on the personnel agenda, we've broken in the category of jobs they will fill. You'll see that in tonight's agenda. Item A is any person that will fill an administrative role. Item B relates to certified personnel, such as classroom teachers and guidance counselors. Item C is for classified personnel, such as secretaries, paraprofessionals, etc. And item D is for supplemental contracts. These contracts fall under typically union negotiated agreements that are for jobs that are filled in addition to a person's normal duties, such as maybe a morning bus duty, a coach or a band director, and so on and so forth. The process of vetting all employees using background checks remains the same as always. So I kind of did A, B, C, and
Yes,
D
that's
all
fine.
together there, is that right?
Yep, that's fine. 9A, I think, is yours too.
Okay. 9A, as you had mentioned at the beginning, is the first read of policies for our semi-annual Neola update. I'd like to thank our board representatives, Mrs. Schatzman, Mrs. Metzer, for helping us out through that, and of course, Dr. Irusi for leading that with our Neola rep this time around. There's a lot of policies there, but I think it's obviously important changes that we need to take a look at and make sure we follow through on.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10A, unfinished business. Does anyone have anything they need to discuss?
So I have 2 quick little things. So I love the personnel agenda being broken down. And as I was looking through it, I feel there's many retirements of personnel that have been in our district for a very long time and have made a very important impact. And as in any organization, there's generally a way to honor them for their years of service. And obviously, we are not prepared to do that tonight, but looking through, I think it makes it a little bit more obvious that I would like to challenge ourselves with identifying a way to honor those who are retiring this year and maybe making it something that the board does routinely, because some individuals give 20, 30, even a year service to us and then retire. So just throwing it out there as an idea. And also wanted to take a second and congratulate Mr. Murphy on his retirement, and thank you for your years of service and your support of the board and serving as our interim superintendent during some pretty interesting stuff, a lot of great things, and wanted to promise you that I will ensure that our senior night out carries on next year. That is in honor of your efforts and time, so thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you.
So that was just one thing that was born out of us adjusting our agenda. I really like that it's broken down. It kind of stood out to me. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I thought it was much easier to read and see what was going on.
Yes. Is that something maybe we could coordinate with Mr. Murphy and Dr. Ward to ensure that this year's retirees are all honored? And maybe that's something that us as a board could take up annually? I'm just giving a laundry list and just send you an email.
Do you have
a
your
thought.
notebook? Are you taking notes?
First page. So that was the first thing. The second thing was, one of the things that we discussed last time with our agenda is that we would attempt, when and if alignment occurred, to reference back to our strategic plan. I didn't really hear reference to that tonight. Did I miss?
I heard
Yeah.
Mr. Murphy reference.
I most certainly did. I did with the bleachers.
Yeah, the bleachers, but,
Because that was the one thing that I felt like it
okay.
applied. So the other things I wasn't quite as clear cut, so that's
Okay.
why I didn't do it. I thought last time we talked, you said kind of
No,
wet
we
it.
keep it open. I
Yeah.
heard the one, I was like, and then I looked through and I was like, are there others? We're clearing the house out now. Okay. So I was once again, just making sure that was something that we felt we wanted to continue doing, or the board.
Sure. as they're able, that would be great.
I think that was it.
Moving on to item 11A, meeting notification. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the board is Monday, May 8th, 2023 at 7 PM at the Board of Education Building, 35353 Curtis Boulevard in Eastlake. 12A, do I hear a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
Madam President, I move to adopt the consent calendar.
Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I second the adoption of 12A, adoption of consent calendar.
Discussion? Mr. Charnello?
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Schatzman?
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Moving on to 13A, adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Madam President, I make a motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
With gusto, yes. Second.
Discussion?
Thanks for hanging with us the whole time.
And the birthday boy as well. Thank
Mr.
you.
Charnello?
I couldn't let it go.
Happy birthday, Mr. Roskis.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Schatzman?
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer?
Yes.
We are adjourned at 8:08 PM.